Today, we're diving into a real diplomatic firestorm. We're talking about a relationship that started with so much promise, but has now completely unraveled into public accusations of state-sponsored murder. This is the story of how India and Canada went from being such close partners to, well, where they are today. It all just exploded with this one statement. In September of 2023, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau stood up in front of his parliament and dropped an absolute bombshell. He publicly connected the government of India to the murder of a Canadian citizen right there on Canadian soil. I mean, that is one of the most serious accusations one country can possibly make against another. But, a moment like this doesn't just happen out of the blue. It's really the boiling point after decades of tension, of mistrust, and of violence. So the big question we have to ask is, how on earth did a 70-year partnership that began so well get to this point? To really get it, we've got to rewind the clock and go all the way back to the beginning. It's kind of hard to imagine now, but believe it or not, there was a golden age. Right after India gained its independence, the relationship with Canada wasn't just friendly. It was basically a textbook example of international cooperation. As a brand new, independent India was just getting on its feet, Canada really stepped up in a huge way. People at the time described the relationship as getting stronger every year. And we're not talking about small gestures here. We're talking major support. Food, money, technical know-how. The scale of it was just immense. Get this, almost 4 billion Canadian dollars in 1951 alone. Plus critical help for huge projects like hydroelectric power plants. I mean, they were building a truly solid foundation. But that foundation, well, it was about to get hit by a political earthquake. A single event that would completely shatter the trust between these two nations and plant the very first seeds of a deep, deep mistrust. And this was the moment everything changed. In May 1974, India stunned the world. It successfully tested its first nuclear bomb with the codename Smiling Buddha. Now, for India, this was a moment of immense national pride, a major strategic move. But for Canada, it felt like a total betrayal. So you might be asking, why were they so upset? Well, here's the thing. Canada, and a lot of the West, was absolutely enraged because they believed India had used plutonium that Canada had specifically supplied for peaceful things, like developing the country and generating electricity. In their view, their aid, their help, had just been turned into a weapon. Canada tried to patch things up by asking India to sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the NPT. But India said no. They saw the treaty as totally discriminatory. It basically created a nuclear haves and have-nots club. If you already had the bomb before 1967, cool, you could keep it. But if you were like India and developed it later, you were banned. To India, that was a crazy double standard, and refusing to sign just made that diplomatic crack even wider. So the relationship never really bounced back from that nuclear fight. And instead of getting better, a totally new and frankly much more violent problem started to emerge. The rise of a militant separatist movement that, from India's point of view, had found a safe place to operate on Canadian soil. Now, just so we're all on the same page here, we're talking about the Khalistan movement. This is a Sikh separatist movement, and its goal is to create an independent homeland for Sikhs called Khalistan right in the Punjab region. And while the movement has political wings, it's also had a very violent militant history. And the 1980s, wow. It was just this terrifying, rapid downward spiral. It kind of kicked off in '81 when Canada's Prime Minister, Pierre Trudeau, refused to extradite a key separatist leader. Then, in 1984, the Indian military stormed the Golden Temple, the holiest site for Sikhs. That action enraged Sikhs all over the world and just poured gasoline on the separatist fire in Canada. The fallout was immediate and it was tragic. India's prime minister was assassinated, which led to horrific anti-Sikh riots. And then, the very next year, the absolute worst-case scenario happened. 329. That's the number of people who were killed when Air India Flight 182 was literally blown out of the sky. Most of them were Canadian citizens. The bomb was planted by Khalistani separatists based in Canada. To this day, it is the deadliest terrorist attack in Canadian history. And for India, the aftermath was just as infuriating as the attack itself. The mastermind of the bombing, the very same man Canada had refused to hand over years earlier, he escaped. And after this long, drawn-out investigation, only a single person was ever convicted for their part in the deaths of 329 people. From where India was sitting, it looked like justice was never, ever served. Okay, let's fast forward to our time, because to really get the current crisis, you have to understand the very specific and unique political situation in Canada recently, which basically poured fuel on this decades-old fire. And what's really fascinating here is this kind of generational echo. Back in 1981, you had Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau refusing to extradite the man who would later mastermind the Air India bombing. Decades later, his son, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, oversaw the release from jail of the only person ever convicted in that same attack. You can see why, to India, this looked like a really disturbing pattern of leniency repeating itself. So, here's the political math that's so important. After the 2019 election, Justin Trudeau's government was in a pretty tough spot. He won, yeah, but he didn't get a majority. He was 13 seats short. To stay in power, he needed support from another party. And that party was the NDP, led by Jagmeet Singh, which held 24 crucial seats. This situation basically made Jagmeet Singh the kingmaker. Trudeau needed him, and as a result, Singh's influence grew and grew. And this had real, tangible effects on the India-Canada relationship. Suddenly, the Canadian government started speaking out on India's internal issues, like the huge farmer protests. And maybe most importantly, the government was pressured into removing the term Khalistan extremist from an official national security report. From India's perspective, it looked like Canadian foreign policy was being held hostage by domestic politics. And all of this, all these different threads, the nuclear mistrust from the 70s, the separatist violence of the 80s, and these modern political dynamics, it all brings us full circle, right to the explosive events of 2023. The final steps to a total meltdown happened fast. In June of 2023, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a man India had officially labeled a terrorist, was shot and killed in British Columbia. A couple of months later, the United States reportedly shared intelligence with Canada through the Five Eyes network, suggesting Indian agents might be involved. By September, Trudeau went public with it, and that triggered an immediate, severe diplomatic crisis, with both countries kicking out senior diplomats. And India's reaction was unusually fierce. They didn't just deny it, they went on the offensive. They expelled a top Canadian diplomat and basically threw the accusation right back, calling Canada a safe haven for terrorists. At that point, the relationship had pretty much completely collapsed. Which leaves us all with this one big, lingering question. This isn't just some new fight that popped up. This is a 50-year story of broken trust, political games, and violence. Given how deep these wounds are, the path from cooperation to crisis was long and painful. And you have to wonder, the path back? It looks even longer.